Hello! Welcome to this week's video. So for this week's video, I'm going to do my wrap up for the months of, let's say, March and April, because thankfully I read a lot in March and April, because everybody's sort of like staying home now with like the coronavirus thing going, and thankfully, and I use that in quotations as well because we're the only thing open. Uh, I'm still able to work because I work retail, and I work retail involving food. So, as one of the only things open in the area that we live in, um, we're pretty busy, and it's just madness. Um, but I have been able to get a lot of reading done, which is really, really awesome. And I've had a nice variety of ebooks and print books because while this whole thing's going on, I'm trying to get a decent dent in that motherfracker right there. That my TBR pile that goes all the way down to the flow. So going to be giving you my thoughts on the books that I read, let's say between March and April. Oh, because in the beginning, not the beginning of March, was it the beginning of March? I got sick. I got sick for 2 weeks. We're not sure if it was the virus or not because I had some symptoms, but then I didn't have others. But either way, I was home for 2 weeks. Got a lot of reading done. So that was the only plus. If it was like the virus, it was one of the worst colds that I ever had. It was really bad. So let's get into my wrap up, which we are starting with a book that my sister lent me because I don't have my own copy of this, and it is the Diana Gabaldon's 7 Stones to Stand or Fall, and I believe she has the book jacket cover thing, which so I have like this, just like this part. She has the book jacket cover because I would do that too to protect my pretty covers if I was lending books to people. And this is sort of a series of different novellas and like little set like in the Outlander universe and in the Lord John universe, which I haven't been able to. I'm not so much into the Lord John series. I am reading right now The Scottish Prisoner, which I haven't finished yet, but I'm reading it, and again, like that one is worth it to me just for the Jamie and little baby William scenes. Just, oh my god. Like, if you're not really into the Lord John series and you're thinking about getting the Scottish Prisoner because maybe like you're not sure like how much Jamie is in it, and it's worth it. It's worth it for his scenes with his son. So I haven't finished that one. This one, I particularly liked there's a story of Roger's parents, Jeremiah, and what was his mother's name? I want to say Marjorie, but I think that's wrong. I don't remember. But yeah, it's their story, and Frank is in it as well, because Frank had a connection to Roger's father. And I don't want to say too much, but then again, this is a wrap up, so it's not sort of like a to be read or a book haul. So I'm never sure how much to spoil with people. So I will say this: there's time travel. There's a scene in Moby, or is it Echo in the Bone? I think it's Moby. There's a scene with Roger. Yeah, it's in Moby with Roger, where Roger sees his father. and like finds out that it's his father and doesn't know if he like is torn with telling him that he's his son. And it, yeah, that's, there's a scene there. So I don't think I'm able to spoil it because it says it here that there's a part where Jeremiah falls through time, and then it's where because they think that like the father is the Roger's mother thinks that her husband is dead for like I think a year or something, and then they figure out a way for him to go back, and it's just the moment that that the husband and the wife see each other again. So that part is just heartbreaking. That's one of the ones in here. Another one in here is a story about the Saint Germain, that doofus, that rapey doofus, and Master Raymond, and the connection that they have with Claire. That the three of them are all connected in a certain way, and something that happens in that beautiful starlight room that we thought happened didn't happen, and how he is in some way, is he connected to Fergus, our sweet baby French crumpet Fergus? So that was, I really liked that story. And I also liked how it sort of mingled in with Michael, Jenny's son Michael, and Joni, little Joni, Leary's daughter, Marcelly's sister, Joni, little Joan, who is going to be a nun, or at least that was the intention. And then, like all the Leary Mackenzie women, she meets a Fraser, and that sort of throws her all off whack. And so that, yeah, those two stories I really, really enjoyed. So good, so good. And Virgins, Jamie and Ian as teenagers in France. They're like mercenaries, and that was good. I liked it, but I didn't like it as much as I thought I would, but I liked towards the end, I thought it really, really picked up and packed a punch, and that was really, really good. So I enjoyed Virgins. I loved Saint Germain story with Michael and Joan. I loved Roger's dad's story. Oh, that was so painful. But yeah, so that was that one. Oh, this is gonna be a long video because your girl's gonna want to talk about some books. And so she read a lot of books. Okay, so we'll go next. Oh, Wedding the Highlander by Janet Chapman. I DNF'd this one, which disappointed me because I usually like Janet Chapman and her like Highlander books, but this one was sort of like, it threw me off because it wasn't what I expected it to be. It sort of bills itself as a guy a medieval Highlander, who is like trapped in the modern world. And so she is a surgeon, the heroine, and he is a Highlander, and he, I think, rescues her from a car crash. Yeah. What I thought was, like, it kind of felt like I got dropped in the middle of a series that, like, it didn't read like a book that could stand alone. Because right when it starts, he's already been in the modern world for like a while. He's there with his son. I think his wife has died. So yeah, I got kind of thrown off by that. I thought it was going to be that, and he's like kind of already like settled in the modern world, and he's like living there for a while. Um, so I thought it was going to be more of like she comes upon him like as he's just like fallen through time kind of thing, and he rescues her. But that wasn't what it was, and it didn't feel like a book that could be read on its own. It kind of felt like you're starting like in the middle of a series, and like the characters have been like through all this stuff before the book has started. So that kind of threw me off, and I couldn't like kind of focus on and like get immersed in the story because I was kind of confused. Uh, so that was disappointing. Um, the next one, Laurie McBain's Devil's Desire. I didn't DNF this one. Just couldn't really like get into it. Like she's living with this horrible aunt who hates her for some like unknown reason, and is just this horrible person, and all this just bad stuff happens to the heroine, and it's just misery for like the first bunch of like, I'm like reading like 20 pages of like her talking about like how horrible her life is, and I'm just like, okay, let's go, get on with it. And it's just, yeah, I just couldn't get into this one, which is Laurie McBain's Devil's Desire. Now, for what could potentially be, we're in May now, so we still have a few months to go, but my top 2 reads of 2020 so far, we have Kristin Hannah's The Nightingale. Now, I was prepared for angst and pain and suffering because I've read Kristin Hannah before. This girl likes to hurt you. She likes to cause you pain. And she do. In this book, she do. You have 2 sisters set during World War II, 2 French sisters set during the Nazi occupation in Paris. And they are very, very different. Isabelle is sort of like a free spirit, rebellious kind of girl, and Vienne, I always want to call her Vivian, but it's not, because she doesn't have the extra V in her name. It's Vienne. Is sort of like the straight-laced, responsible, homemaker kind of woman who they were both, I was gonna say raised, no, they were both kind of like abandoned by their father, but they were both, Vienne kind of raised Isabelle for like a lot of most of her teenage years, and because their mother dies, and their father sort of, he fought in the war and then came back really damaged, and he developed a big drinking problem, especially after the mother died, because he was pretty much just broken and was just not fit to take care of these 2 girls. So he kind of sends them away, or he sends Isabelle away, because Vienne at first is sort of like the caretaker, and she falls in love with this man, Antoine, this guy, like they're around the same age, and she gets pregnant around, I think, the age of 16, but Antoine loves her and wants to, marry her and all, and like do right by her. Like he's not like he doesn't intend to abandon her or anything. He loves her and wants to marry her. and the father like pretty much kicks Vienne out of his house, and then sends Isabel, or Vienne sends Isabel to like a boarding school because she can't take care of her. So it's sort of like the two sisters, they love each other, but they're estranged. Because Isabel has her some serious daddy issues. And then war breaks out. World War II breaks out. And Isabel becomes this fighter, sort of like resistance fighter, underground, helping the soldiers, that kind of thing. And Antoine has to go off to war. And then he gets taken prisoner. And so Vienne is left alone with their daughter. And then one of the Nazis gets sent to occupy her house. A guy named Beck, I think his name was Beck, who is a decent man for all that he is a Nazi SS officer. And I know that it's like, for majority of people, you think Nazi and you think horrible person, like just monster. Yes, however, there were, if you actually read history, there were men and Nazi officers who had nothing to do with what was going on in the camps, who were part of the German war for their own reasons, who joined the war for one reason and then discovered what was really going on and tried to do their best to fight against Hitler and what was happening and that kind of stuff. So that Beck sort of was like doing what he could for Vienne and you know her situation. So it was a really interesting dynamic, and as sort of the years go on, you kind of sense that there's like a little something between them, but neither one of them act on it. And then Isabel's mess with the resistance comes back to hurt Vienne and her life and her attempt to keep her daughter Sophie safe, and to save Isabel, Vienne has to do something really, really not great. And I really wish that this had not happened, because then another man comes to occupy Vienne's house, and he is no Beck. He is not a nice man. He is not a caring man. He is evil. He revels in hurting her, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful book. And Isabel, she fights the war her way. Vienne fights the war her way. The father ends up having connections that we didn't expect, and like you learn what is actually going on with him and how he's fighting the war. And it's all just so like painful and heartbreaking and beautiful. And I've always said, World War II, I am here for you. I am here for anything World War II related. Throw in like strong women in the midst of that heartbreak and chaos and just horrible circumstance, and I am here for you. Now, so that was Kristin Hannah, The Nightingale. I cannot recommend this book enough. If you love World War II, stories of love and courage and pain, just so much pain, definitely pick this up. I cried reading this book. Little Sarah. I cried. Yeah. Oh my god. And finally in my paperbacks. We still have to get to the ebooks. Oh, and the audibles. Forgot about the audibles. Paperbacks, we have Paulina Simon's Lone Star. Now, I am a Paulina Simon's slore. Just, I love her writing style so much. And I was listening to this podcast by Smart Bitches Trashy Books, and they were talking about how for a lot of writers, like, they get hung up on, or they get told that, you know, everything, you know, they're so hung up on like proper English grammar and like that kind of stuff. And for a lot of times there's a difference between, you know, there's books that they read very dry when you write them with like proper, you know, there has to be a balance between like the proper English grammar, sentence structure, and voice. Paulina Simon's has one of the most exquisite writing voices I have ever read. I mean, and you know, she has like one-word sentences. She has like starting sentences with like and or you know, like just sentences that would make your English teacher fail you in high school. But yet it works for the mood and the tone of the story you want to tell. Now, I'm not sure, again, how much I want to spoil with this book, because this is one of those books that you can't, you have to read and discover the not necessarily the twist, but if you're a fan of The Bronze Horseman, which is next to Outlander is my favorite series of all time, The Bronze Horseman, written by Paulina Simons, then I will say this book has a connection to The Bronze Horseman, but I don't want to tell you what that connection is, because that'll spoil it, and that'll spoil the experience, in my opinion, of reading this book. And it is about a girl named Chloe Devine and her group of friends who are planning to go to Barcelona for I think a grad trip before they start college. So they're doing their like backpacking through Europe kind of thing. But during the trip, they meet a boy. They meet a boy named Johnny Rainbow. And Johnny Rainbow is a cool guitar playing, ponytailed dude who falls in love with Chloe, and Chloe falls in love with him. But she has a friend, Blake, who there was sort of a connection there between Chloe and Blake, but they've sort of put it on the back burner, and they don't really talk about it and acknowledge it, because Chloe is actually going out with Blake's brother Mason, and Blake is going out with Chloe's best friend, the hot mess that is Hannah. Hannah is a hot mess. She's a selfish, I don't understand why Chloe is friends with this girl. Because it's like, Hannah's not necessarily malicious. Like, she's not a bitch. She's just very, like, self-absorbed, in her own world, selfish. And so she decided that she wanted Blake, and so then Chloe kind of, turned to Mason, and then it just sort of became this like weird quadrangle. And then Johnny Rainbow shows up and sort of shakes everything up. And it's there's tension there between Johnny and Blake, because even though they don't acknowledge it, Blake hates Johnny because Johnny is clearly attracted to Chloe. And so Chloe and they have like this brief little kind of like moment in time. And it is just this beautiful, beautiful story of found loves and lost loves and old loves and new loves, and it's just beautiful and heartbreaking and wonderful and hopeful, and just there's a connection to the Bronze Horseman, to the characters in the Bronze Horseman, to the characters in the Bronze Horseman, that I cannot expand upon more than that. Read this book. My sister read it at first, and she cried and said that it was one of her favorite books of all time. I definitely cried, and it is one of my favorite books. I did find it a little slow in the beginning, but it's sort of like, that's sort of the point. It's not this like action-packed, they're not like in the middle. It's not the Bronze Horseman. They're not in the middle of a war. It's a story about four friends. So there's a lot of, discussion, and there's a lot of like character exploration and like that kind of stuff. And then it occasionally punches you in the face with heartache, and so there's that. So that's definitely read this one, especially if you're a Bronze Horseman fan. Definitely read this one. So let's get to my ebooks. Or maybe let's do the Audible. Let's do my Audibles, because I had. Did I? Yeah, because the next one that I think the last wrap up I did, I said that I was in to Pretty Scars by C.D. Reese. I don't think I had finished it when I did my last wrap up. And it's Gabriel, and what was I forget what her name was. Carrie, that's right. Gabriel and Carrie. And it's part of her, Carrie is a member of the Drazen family, which was the series that I'd read before with like Jonathan Drazen and what was her name? Olivia, I think. And I couldn't get into that one, but Pretty Scars was, oh my god, it was so good. Rich girl, again, boy with a guitar. What's with the boy with a guitar? Violin. Yeah, he was violinist, and they fall in love, but her family very much does not approve and does things. The father is so evil, so just, oh my god, he's awful. And they get separated, and 'cause she believes that he's dead, and then she ends up marrying this horrible, sadistic piece of crap. And then Gabriel comes back and is not so much dead, but is disfigured. And so he, of course, is the whole like, oh, she's never gonna love me and that kind of thing. And just, oh, it's just awful. It's awful and beautiful, and I cannot recommend it enough. Pain, people. Beautiful, beautiful pain. The next one was By My Soul by Jade West. Let's get to you. By My Soul by Jade West. Enjoyed it immensely. Again, my gold standard for her was Bait. This one, I'd give it like third place. Third place under Dirty Bad Wrong, which was my second place one. Again, liked it. Again, not quite Bait standard. I don't know if I was spoiled with Bait, because that was my first Jade West book that I'd read. But By My Soul, the heroine's sister owes like a crap ton of money. So to, I guess, pay off her debt, this guy who's part of like this organization of sex slave girls, this guy buys her and buys her debt so that she can save her sister. So what this guy does is he puts on these like he trains these girls sexually, and puts on these shows to sort of exhibit the girls. So he puts on these like sexual shows with like BDSM and all this stuff, and then the clients bid on these girls, and you know, however like much money they get is like the highest bidder like gets to, I guess, I don't think they get to keep the girls, but they get to enjoy the girls personally. So the heroine allows herself to be used to pay off the sister's debt, and the sister is this like, I think she's involved in drugs, and it's just awful. But of course, the hero falls in love with the heroine. What's her name? Again, the Audible ones, I haven't, it's been a while. It's been a while. So let me see. What was, oh, it's just he, she. It doesn't say the, yeah. So I don't remember what the characters' names are, but I do remember that I loved it. Loved it, loved it, and it left on a cliffhanger. Now, this By My Soul is actually the second book in this series. That because when I was like researching like which Jade West book to get next, um, I saw a lot of reviews that book one of this trilogy of like this couple, that not a lot happens in book one. And so just in my opinion, you're fine starting with book two, because book two, like, it still explains why she's there, and it's really that from what I gathered, when really the sex starts. So let's be real, that's when you want to start. Um, so yeah, that was By My Soul by Jade West. Um, next, the next one was, oh, oh my, okay. Dark Notes by Pam Goodwin. I DNF'd this one. I DNF'd this one because, see if I can get the summary. Hero's name is Emmerich Marceau. The heroine's name is Ivy. And I loved the premise of it, but I believe there's like an age gap, but she's like 17, and he's the music teacher at her school. Yeah, I would have been okay, I guess, with like if he'd been like her tutor or something, I guess. But I couldn't get into this one because he was just unlikable from like the first moment when you meet him, and he's meeting with like the head of the department or something, and he's like copping like such an attitude with her, and just like being all like rude to her, and she's like taking it for some reason, and he's sort of getting off on treating her like crap and like just talking down to her, and you get the sense that, or you find out that he has something on her son, who's also a student there. And so as a trade-off, she's hired him, she's given him the job at this school as long as he keeps quiet about what is going on with her son, who's an a-hole himself. And he's sort of enjoying holding this over her. So and there was some sort of like scandal at his other school, which, if it's anything like what is going on now with Ivy, like, we don't know, or I didn't read far enough to know what it was, and I didn't like him. And with Ivy, this girl is pretty much being raped by everybody, and like, you know, her brother's abusing her. I don't know if he's like sexually abusing her, but he has a friend who's definitely raping her, and she's being like used by boys at school, and I just couldn't see how this was supposed to be a romance, or an erotic romance, from like what I gathered, between like a piano teacher and this student. Okay, fine, I can, you know, if everything else was like not crap and the characters weren't awful, I could maybe get on board. But just the fact that he was such an asshole about everything, like, there's a point where like her father has been dead for a while, and her mother's useless. So it's pretty much just her and her brother, who is just this abusive ass, and letting his friends kind of like take a pop at her whenever they want. So I was supposed to think that this girl who's been so sexually violated by everyone around her is going to be turned on and interested by this music teacher. That she's going to have any want to be touched by any man at this point. And I couldn't psychologically make that leap of why. Why would she feel the least bit attracted to the teacher? And there's one scene where, like, yeah, her father is dead, and he's the only, she adored her father, and she's talking about him to the teacher, to Emmerich, and she's calling him daddy and all this. And this son of a bitch actually, like, yells at her and, like, demands that she stop calling her father daddy and act like an adult and blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry. She's 17 years old. It would make sense that she calls him daddy. If you don't want to screw maybe don't be attracted, and don't, like, try and get a 17-year-old girl to want to screw you if you think she's too immature and calling her father daddy. Like, how fucking dare you tell her what she can and can't call her father, who is the only person that she's loved, because everyone else in her life is garbage. And he, like, goes and, like, goes around, like, her neighborhood, and it is all talking about, like, how, he can't resist her and all this. And I'm like, you're an asshole. I don't see you doing anything. Like, she finds out that she's, being abused by her brother, and so he's demanding that she like, lift her top and, like, show him, like, where the bruises are. And meanwhile, he's all, like, getting turned on by, her showing her skin, and it's just wrong. It's just so not what I was expecting, and so not, like, what the premise of it was. It's just, he's not a nice guy. And I can understand if she was, like, this, young, innocent girl who is, like, attracted to her piano teacher, and he is sort of, like, attracted to her, but in a way that where, like, he refuses to touch her until, like, she's 18 and they're not, like, he's not her, like, teacher anymore. Or it'd be different if he was, like, her tutor, but she's underage and he's, like, an ass to her, and just no. I was just, no. So that one did not do it. Right now, what am I reading right now? Well, I'm not listening to anything right now, but I do have a book on standby that I will get to when I'm doing my book haul stuff. Ebooks. Oh, yeah, this is going to be a long vlog because I read a lot. Okay. Ebooks. The last vlog that I did. Oh, come on. I'm trying to get the cover. The last vlog I did was talking about that I was currently, I believe, reading Folsom by Willow Fisher? Willow Aster and Tarryn Fisher, Folsom. Now, this book had such potential, and I loved it until I got to the ending. I hated that ending with the passion of 100 suns. I won't say 1,000, because that level of hatred is left for the ending of A Song in the Daylight by Paulina Simons. That one I hated with the passion of 1,000 suns. This one I hated with the passion of 100 suns. Because it's sort of like a gender-swapped Handmaid's Tale, where women run the world, and men have sort of been very much, the population of men has been decimated, and so they sort of use men as studs for like stud service to provide them with children. And so Folsom is one of their studs, and he sort of goes around from different families and is forced to service them and used to increase the population. Gwen is one of the daughters, or one of the two sisters. One of them, she is impregnated by Folsom. They both are, her and her sister, but Gwen is the one that he falls in love with. Now, there's a cliffhanger ending, so I was, there was something that happens in the ending that I hated, but I was, I was willing to like continue on because the ending ends on a cliffhanger. Until I found out that book 2 is not a continuation of Gwen and Folsom's story. It's the love story of his friend Jackal. And from what the reviews that I've read, Gwen and Folsom's story, which ended on a pretty huge cliffhanger, just sort of gets referred to and wrapped up in like a subplot backstory kind of way in Jackal's book. No. Either you wrap up Gwen and Folsom's story in one book, or you continue their story in book 2 and you leave Jackal for another book. You don't give me Gwen and Folsom in book 1, rip them apart, have that cliffhanger ending, and then just sort of refer to them around Jackal's story. Because one, if let's say I started with Jackal's story, then I'd have like this other like little subplot thing going with these other two people that seem to have had like a pretty momentous, important events happening in like their story, and the Jackal story isn't given his due. Like, let him have his own book as like his own book, and you can, like talk about other characters, but don't leave one book on a cliffhanger and then try and resolve it, weaving it into another story. No. So that was no. Just very much no. That was very disappointing. Next, we have, what was the next one? Oh, the next one I had that I read was come on. was a short little novella, The Arrangement, part one by Pia Monroe. And this was such a cute start to this series, and I definitely want to read the other books, excuse me, in this series, because again, this is just like a little novella peek bit, and it was get about, yeah, so Sophia walks into a room at a BDSM fetish club, and it turns out she walks into the wrong room because there's a guy there who, what's his name? Noah, I think? I think his name was Noah. I can't tell here. But yeah, I think his name was Noah. And so he's there, and he's expecting to meet this woman for a BDSM sexual encounter. And in walks Sophia, who is like this very sort of like high-powered, I think she's a lawyer, and sort of has this sort of wish to sort of let go, and she has this sort of submissive desire in her, as a lot of is kind of a lot of standard feelings that these high-powered women have. Like, they're these high-powered career women, that they have this side of them that likes the idea of sexual sort of like just freedom and submissiveness. They have that kind of edge to them as well. So Sophia walks into his room, and when he is like commanding her to do all this stuff, she decides to just go with it. And then they find out, or he finds out, that she was not the woman that was supposed to be delivered to his room. But the night went so well that, of course, he wants to find her, and he does, and so they strike up this arrangement. And it was really, really good. I loved the little novella. Yeah, so definitely recommend that one. Let's see. No, not you. Next is, last one is Black Obsidian by Victoria Quinn. Now, I DNF'd this one because it had another asshole hero. Here's the thing. I love my alpha heroes. I do. However, I don't like assholes who are just assholes. I don't like unlikable alpha heroes. Like, you can make him an alpha, but make him, like, likable. Don't make him an ass. So it's, okay, I'm trying to remember. I don't remember what the characters' names are. Again, I read these a while back. So, he, is just, he's a dom, and he's recently ended a relationship with his submissive, and just the way that he, like a long time relationship, and he ends his relationship with the submissive because he falls in pants with a woman who she has issues with, she's had, like, in her opinion, I think like maybe sexual addiction, if like I don't know like she would call it that, but she sort of has this habit of sort of just falling into bed with men to sort of make herself feel better. And so when she and the hero meet, she is incredibly attracted to him and he is attracted to her, but she wants to take things really, really slow. And he agrees because he thinks that, that makes him, that proves that like he's somehow like, I think they're trying to paint him like, oh, what a good guy he is that he's willing to wait to have sex with her. And meanwhile, like the reason that he's doing it is so that she'll agree to be his submissive and he can sleep with her after that whenever he wants. And he has no intention of like having a relationship with her. He just wants to use her for sex, and then when that relationship is over, he thinks that he will end it. She wants to take things slow because she genuinely has feelings for him and doesn't want him to be like every other man where she falls into bed just to make herself feel better. So she wants to wait for the sex to have it where, in the hopes that she can develop something real. He does not tell her that at the end of like the 4 weeks or whatever that he wants a sexual relationship with her and he doesn't want anything serious. No, because why would he tell her that? And it's just, he's just such a jerk and just so unlikable. The first that I had with him was she does charity work and he does charity work too, but she does charity work, and she's holding this, I think, homeless program thing, and this homeless guy who like she knows, and they kind of have a rapport, and he kind of has like a little crush on her, starts like talking to her and like is like being like all like kind of like flirty with her and stuff. Hero guy loses his shit and is just so rude to this poor guy, and she's like, how dare you treat him like that, and blah blah blah, and he's just a friend, and blah blah blah. And he doesn't, the next time that they encounter each other, the hero and the guy, all the hero does is make a joke about something that the homeless guy, I guess, finds funny. And then in the hero's point of view, you read, like, you hear her say, like, oh, he didn't apologize to the guy, but they shared a joke. So that's, in her opinion, that was good enough. He made it up to me in my eyes, this dreamy guy, because he treated this poor homeless guy like crap, but then made him have a giggle. That totally made up for him being a bastard to the homeless guy because he's hot. No. But I was willing to go with it until we got to the birth control talk. He demands that she go on the pill because, and I quote, "I'm not going to wear a condom." And that's when I finished. That's when I closed the book. If it had been a paperback, I would have thrown it against the wall. I'm sorry. the first, this is not like, this is going to be the first time that they have sex, and you expect her to go through the inconvenience of putting hormones in her body, all because you don't want to wear a little plastic or rubber around your wee-wee. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me with this guy? Just, no, and she says, okay. That's when I was just, no, I'm out. If she had said to him, like, no, I'll go on the pill, because, you know, if she wants to go on the pill, by all means, we should have the choice to regulate whether we have children or not. And birth control is one of the ways that we women do that. But you, Sunshine, are wearing a condom for the foreseeable future. Because guess what? Condoms are not just about pregnancy. And I can't believe that she was okay with this. And that's when I threw the book away. Digitally. Close the book. End book. No, just no. Yeah, so I think that was all the books. Yeah, this has been an hour. There was a lot of books, and I'm happy about that. I'm happy about that because I've had some dud months. So I think that was it for the books that I read. Right now, I am reading Nordic King by Karina Hale, and I'll show you that when I do my wrap up for that one. Liking it so far, but I haven't had, like, the last Karina Hale book that I read, I didn't really enjoy very much. But this one seems alright so far. It's a nanny who is hired to take care of these two kids from this widowed, that belong to this widowed king. So, enjoying it so far. We shall see. Paperback, I am reading The Scottish Prisoner by Diana Gabaldon, which I said at the beginning is worth it just for the scenes of Jamie and his little boy. Yeah, so I think that's going to be it for this week's video. Very happy, for the most part, with my reading experience over March and April. So follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/authorejamie. Like my Facebook page at facebook.com/authorejamie. And I will talk to you guys next time. Bye!